Welcome back to What If Deku Had All for One and Was Betrayed Part 3. Last time we left off after Deku using a quirk called Twin to create a female counterpart of himself, enrolling her into UA. Now that everyone is caught up, let's continue. On the first day of UA, Kyoko is surrounded by students praising her quirk and actions, as well as Yurika finally thanking her as Kyoko had left straight after the exam. Not really wanting to socialize, Kyoko simply smiles and points at Eraserhead in his sleeping bag, informing the class their teacher has arrived. Eraserhead then explains that instead of going to the usual boring orientation, they will do a quirk apprehension test. Handing Kyoko the ball, telling her to throw the ball in any means necessary without leaving the circle. Not thinking much, Kyoko turns around asking her teacher if she can throw it in the opposite direction, as she wants to throw it through the window to All Might's office in Might Tower in Tokyo, Japan. Confused as to why she would want to do that, but intrigued by the idea, Eraser allows it. Before throwing the ball, Kyoko activates all her super strength quirks, telekinesis quirks. Her precision quirk and a new quirk called probe, which allows the user to see the surroundings of an object for 5 minutes after making contact with it. Because of the combination of quirks, the ball is easily launched at a blinding speed through Might Tower, and manipulated to destroy every window in the building, then being sent into orbit. Therefore getting her a score of infinity, shocking the class. Wondering if Kyoko really hit Might Tower or not, the class pull out their phones to check the news, seeing pictures and recordings of the tower being destroyed. Believing she went too far, Tenya Ida storms towards Kyoko, explaining what she did was a serious crime, and is something only a villain would do. However, he is cut off by Kyoko using her telekinetic quirk to seal his mouth, screaming about how she made sure it didn't harm anyone, plus that buffoon All Might doesn't deserve anything. Then stating that if vandalism makes her a villain, then 2 counts of attempted murder, multiple counts of manslaughter, damage to private property, and child endangerment would make All Might a supervillain. Interested as to what she meant by that, Eraserhead asks her to expand, however she simply tells him to ask All Might, turning to All Might who had been watching from a distance, giving him a death stare full of bloodlust. After the tension calmed down a little, the tests continue with Kyoko getting first place, every time, and first place in the class overall. Despite their awkward introductions, Tenya Ida and Akako Yurika decide to walk to the train station with Kyoko, becoming friends. They try to ask why she seems to hate All Might so much, however Kyoko cuts them off coldly, stating that it is private, reminding them not to pry into her life. On the next day, the whole of Class 1am sit in their classroom, waiting in anticipation to learn who their heroics teacher is. When suddenly, a loud noise is heard rapidly approaching the classroom until All Might bursts through the door, announcing his arrival, exciting the whole class except Kyoko, who decided to attempt to hold back her bloodlust more. All Might then explains how he will be their fundamental hero teacher, then stating that the clothes make the pros, pressing a button on a remote, making their hero costumes eject from the wall. After getting changed, All Might once again notices the resemblance between his master and Kyoko, as her costume is the exact same as Nana Shimura's hero costume, except she also had a utility belt around her waist, with pockets for medical supplies, food rations, and high-density metal orbs to launch at opponents. All Might compliments her on her costume, mentioning how it reminds him of his master Nana Shimura, with Kyoko pulling an annoyed expression, stating that it was intentional, while turning around, walking away as to not say anything unnecessary that would draw even more attention onto herself. Feeling a bit rejected, All Might changes the subject, explaining the activity. For the match, Kyoko is partnered up with Yurika and they are against Ida and Bakugo. As soon as the battle began, Kyoko activates her X-ray vision quirk, locating the bomb, then using airwalk to fly up the side of the building, punching the wall, collapsing it. Using her telekinetic quirk to attract the bomb towards herself, placing it on the ground next to Yurika, telling her to defend it until he returns, entering the building. Using her telekinetic quirk to limit the mobility of Ida, wrapping the capture tape around his leg. Remembering Bakugo, Kyoko decides to have a little fun with him, deciding to not capture him straight away. As soon as Bakugo noticed her presence, he fired a giant explosion point blank at her, but she uses air wall and telekinesis to block the attack. And due to now hating Bakugo more than ever, she decides to make the fight slow and painful, slowly breaking his bones one by one, bending his fingers back after every failed attack. After she had broken 6 of Bakugo's fingers, All Might told her to stop toying with him as only villains do that. Hearing this, Kyoko is enraged once again, unable to hold back her anger, looking down the camera at All Might, raising her hand, closing it in a choking motion. Using both her telekinesis quirk and a quirk called projection, that projects the actions of the user in any location they can see. Because of this, All Might is lifted in the air, holding his neck, struggling to breathe. He is then tossed to the side, allowing him to catch his breath. Kyoko then informs All Might that if he must know, this fight is personal and revenge for 10 years of bullying. Confused as to what she meant by bullying considering he didn't even know her, Bakugo asks her if she has gone crazy. Switching her attention to Bakugo, snapping his arm, Kyoko states that she doesn't mean her getting bullied, she has only just came to Japan for the first time a couple months ago. I am referring to Izuku Midoriya. Hearing the name, Bakugo's eyes widen, remembering the day he woke up, to hear the news that there was an earthquake in Muzutafu, Japan, killing all the residents of the local apartment building including Deku's mother, then later learning that Deku was found dead the next morning, with the police explaining it was probably a result of suicide following the death of his mother. Bakugo then asks what her relation is to the damn nerd, and also demands to know why he killed himself. Annoyed with the constant questioning, she clenched her hands together, squeezing Bakugo, breaking a few ribs. She then explains how she is Izuku's cousin and he might have suicided because you asked him to earlier that day, however if you really want to know why, you will have to ask him in hell. Appearing behind Bakugo covering his mouth, activating chloroform knocking Bakugo unconscious throwing him to the side, walking out the building, touching the bomb, ending the match. After Bakugo is carted off to Recovery Girl, and the class finish questioning Deku about why he did all that, only getting a short "don't pry into my life" death stare. All Might asked the class who the MVP was, with most believing it was Kyoko as she won, however Momo explains that it is either Eureka or Ida. As Eureka continued to defend the bomb the whole time, and Ida really went deep into the role, to protect the bomb. Hearing this, Kyoko simply smiles, stating that she was definitely not the MVP, she allowed the fight to become too personal, the real MVP is definitely Eureka due to her following every order. And unlike Ida, managing to stay up until the end. Pleased to see her hate is only to himself and Bakugo, All Might smiles, confirming what she had said to be true. After the lesson finally ended, All Might rushed off and reverted back to his deflated form, happy to see that familiar smile once again, however sad that it was never directed at him, as all he ever got from her was hate and bloodlust. In class the next day, the class elect their class president, with Kyoko winning by a large margin, as despite her anger, she is the most powerful and is extremely kind to the rest of the class. Like an angel. At lunchtime, Kyoko, Eureka, and Ida eat lunch together, when the UA defense alarm goes off, informing them that an intruder has broken into the school. Looking out through the wall, Kyoko realizes it is just the media, also noticing Shigaraki in the crowd. She then flies above the crowd, explaining how it's just the media, and if you are scared of the media, you are probably in the wrong place and therefore should drop out. However, if you are not, stop pushing each other, and calmly follow the usual procedures while the teachers deal with the media. After lunch, Kyoko is praised by her class for her handling of the situation, confirming the class's decision to vote her as class president. A few days later, it is announced that the class will be going over USJ for rescue training. While on the bus, Kyoko uses a one-way telepathy quirk to inform Deku about the update in the situation. Back on the bus, the class debate on who the strongest people in their class is, with Kyoko winning with a majority vote followed by Shoto and Bakugo. After arriving at Tear USJ, they are greeted by Space Hero 13, who explains the plan for the day. Suddenly, a purple mist portal opens up in the middle of the USJ, with hundreds of villains exiting from it, with the main three being the Warp Gate villain Kurajiri, a man covered in hands, Shigaraki, and a giant monstrosity with a bird beak. Taking charge of the situation, Aizawa jumps down, to take down villains, deactivating their quirks, while ordering 13 to evacuate the students. However, Kurajiri manages to escape his sight, opening warp gates to turn 13's quirk back on herself and to separate the students across the USJ, seeing the is dire. Kyoko easily immobilizes the villains near her in the water zone, then activating presence erase, to turn invisible, deciding to watch the chaos unfold. After Aizawa was brutally beaten to a bloody pulp, All Might finally arrived, trading blows with the genetically modified No-Mu, eventually blowing the No-Mu away after throwing over 300 mighty blows, going past his limits. Now defenseless, Shigaraki charges towards All Might, however he is stopped by Kyoko, holding him back with her telekinesis, reminding Shigaraki that All Might is her prey, while also creating half an earth dome around All Might to protect him. At the same time, the heroes arrive, and prepare to fire upon Shigaraki, however their attacks are stopped by the arrival of Deku. Wearing a set of clothes comprising of a metallic jet black mask with scarlet red undertone, covering his lower face. A luxurious red and black 100% wool suit jacket and trousers of identical textiles worn with a matte black collared dress shirt, crimson red necktie, and a pair of red dress shoes. Holding the body of the No Mew, stealing its quirks, tossing it to the ground in front of All Might, destroying his Earth Dome. Deku then states that this is the first time they have met face to face, ordering Kiradiari to warp Shigaraki to safety. Hearing this, Shigaraki asks who Deku is, but he is cut off by Kiradiari informing Shigaraki it is time to leave. Seeing this, the heroes inquire who is going to let that happen, once again going on the offensive. However, Deku easily dispatches of them, teleporting Ectoplasm, Hound Dog, and Midnight to his lab unconscious. Now with the pests out the way, Deku lands beside All Might, removing his mask to reveal his face, saying it's been a while number 1, snapping All Might arm. He then goes on to state that it has been lovely seeing him again, however now is not the time to finish him, so he will let him live, reminding him to watch his back at all times, warping away. Taking the No Mew's body with him. At the League of Villains bar, Shigaraki complains about how All Might was still too strong, as well as questioning who that person at the end was. As All For One explains who Deku is to Shigaraki, Deku warps in, fixing his tie, introducing himself, stating how he is in his care now, bowing. Due to the USJ attack, all UA students get 2 weeks off school, and due to 3 teachers being abducted and presumably killed, UA is attacked even more by the media, further damaging society's perception of heroes. Okay guys, this is where I will be ending the 3rd part of What If Deku Had All For One and Was Betrayed. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to find more content like this one. With that out of the way, this is Demon X Saiyan saying bye.